Hello everyone, today we're going to be looking at the Environmental Protection Agency's How's My Waterway? We all know that water is such an essential part of our life, but we don't know much about the waterways that are near us and also whether they're safe or healthy. The EPA's How's My Waterway system gives you access to a lot of detailed and science-based information about the conditions of rivers, lakes, and streams across the United States. So let's get started by looking at the system. You can go to mywaterway.epa.gov and just search up your city, zip code, or name of a specific waterway. I'm going to be looking at, for instance, California. Yeah, I think it's in Avenue. So let's look into some waterways here. If you look here, you can see that it has the Elbow Creek, which is in impaired condition. So you can read that it was last reported in 2024. The identified issue is pesticides, and so it is impaired for aquatic life. This means that it cannot be used for aquatic life, but presumably can be used for other parts of water usage, for example, swimming and boating and or fish and shellfish consumption. And so because there are different categories, you must be careful in looking into what are the approved purposes of the water that is near your waterway. Let's look at some other places as well. Okay, so we have the Cameron Creek whose condition is unknown. So yes, sometimes the data is inaccurate, the research that was done is outdated, or there's just simply not enough evidence to determine. So let's look into a good body of water. This one is in Llamas Fork, and it says that swimming and boating, it's good. Aquatic life, it's good. The conditions unknown, and drinking water conditions unknown. And then we also have here drinking water and swimming and boating condition unknown, but aquatic life is good. And so according to the different types of harmful pollutant there is, it divides you into whether it's available for non-ecological and non-human contact, like industrial water supplies or navigation, whether you are able to use it for human contact. So there's a lot of different ways of application that you can look into. Let's look into some rivers here as well. I will be attaching a form that you can look into in order to do a small lab on identifying different waterways and looking into what has been done, looking at some state monitoring reports as well. So here we have a good one. We have identified issues of bacteria and other microbes and low oxygen. So it is impaired for aquatic life, swimming and boating, and for drinking water, it is impaired. Once you have looked into several of such waterways, I want you to pick one to look very deeply into, presumably one that has more pollutants than one. And so you can see if it has PCBs, nitrogens, and or phosphorus, PFAS, or algae. All these can harm your waterway. For example, algal blooms can harm aquatic life by potentially clogging fish gills, reducing oxygen levels, smothering stream and other riverbeds, and submerging vegetation. And so while we can think, algae shouldn't be an issue, it can have a lot of unexpected circumstances that impairs it for use. And so it's important that we can look into them. Once you can find something that has quite a lot of pollutants, you can identify the pollutants, look at how the environment is impacted, and you can read more looking at the glossaries, and you can learn into what can be done to reduce this impact. And this should be easily findable through basic PCV information and health effects here as well. And I can also give you a brief rundown of some of the most common issues. So let's look into PCBs. PCBs are long-lasting in aquatic organisms, and so when they are eaten by human beings, they can cause cancer and other critical health issues. In order to reduce them, you have to follow very careful fish consumption guideline for individuals, and the states can also lead cleanups in order to reduce PCBs in public waterways and to reduce it from being stored in fish tissues. After you've looked into some of these waterways, now you can think about what's being done in your area, in your state. Both at the national and state level, monitoring is going to be a very crucial part of this. So you can look at waterway reports, you can Google what EPA has done. There's a what's being done section as well, and you can write up a brief paragraph describing what you found out and whether, there's not much being done maybe as well. And then here's the very important part. I want you to go ahead and develop a plan, presumably a 2-part plan, but it can also be more plans or just one that uses the information you have of the different pollutants in the waterway and thinking about how would you implement this, what steps would you take, what organizations would you contact, and how long will it take to restore the ecosystem back into a healthy state. And so, for example, I looked into PFAS monitoring because it's one of the most significant pollutants in waterways where I live, and it has a lot of increased risk of kidney and testicular cancer, liver damage, and immune system suppression when it is entered into the human body. And so it's important because they're called forever chemicals to reduce them in ecosystems as fast as possible. So I would work with a local river watershed council because I know that they already do monitoring and run tests. And so for the elimination processes, I would also work with our state's EGLE and action response team in order to continue documenting and processing the required reports in watersheds. And I would also look into what the work EPA is doing at the federal level because I know that they are designated hazardous super funds for hazardous material, and so this will give us a better opportunity to enforce payment and clean up for the harm. And so in practice, all of these would, help the pollutants from leaking into rivers, but they would primarily take quite a bit of time because while the sampling can be done in 1 or 2 years, the process of getting rid of all the contamination in fish tissues, and it would also depend on how many contaminants there are in the stored waterway, in the sediments as well. So I think it would take about a decade, and it would be a lot of long-term risk that is reduced if a full recovery is possible. So that was my idea. I'm very curious to learn about some of the developed plans that you guys come up with and also what you find in your local waterways. I've only tried it with a couple of states, so yeah, please put down in the comments anything interesting that you find or any questions about using the site. I am so honored to be able to share this with you, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.